Hey, Mama, welcome to the Navigating Postpartum Wellness podcast. This is a community where you can feel seen, heard, and supported with relatable mom content to help you prioritize your wellness. Whether it's managing stress, reducing burnout, or simply finding ways to take care of yourself, this space is for you. Here we focus on making small, manageable steps toward feeling like yourself again without adding more to your plate. I'm your host, Jaree Williams, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Navigating Postpartum Wellness with me, Jaree Williams. And today's episode is all about making healthy eating easier for busy moms, especially during postpartum. We all know that nutrition plays a huge role in recovery, energy levels, and overall wellness. But with the little ones to care for, cooking can feel overwhelming. That's why I'm so excited to have Allison on with me today. Allison is a chef, dietitian, and the founder of Prep Dish, a meal planning service designed to help families eat healthy, delicious meals with ease. She's also a busy mom of three living outside of Austin, Texas, where she and her family raise goats, chickens, and bees. I love that. So let's get into this episode. Hey, Allison.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
So I know that you're a chef and a dietitian. So what sparked your passion for meal planning and helping moms eat healthier?
Well, it actually started way before I was a mom myself. I was working as a personal chef and helping families, a lot of moms, get healthy food on the table. And when I was doing that, I would help six families a week. And as I was doing that, I realized I was coming up with a system and a process to get meals on the table fast. And I thought, I've got to get this out to more people. And that's where I started writing down my recipes and like all of the efficiencies I was learning and created Prep Dish to help everyone, but a lot of moms get meals on the table. And then several years later, I became a mom. And then I started using these meal plans thinking, oh my gosh, past Allison created this product that now every week we rely on in our household.
That
So
is
it's
so amazing how
a
it came
journey.
how it came back
Yes,
around. You're like, I'm helping others, now I'm helping myself.
full circle.
Yeah, so many moms want to eat well but struggle with time and energy. So what are your best tips for making healthy eating easier, especially in postpartum?
Yeah, I mean, my number one tip is always have a plan. Don't try and, oh, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to figure out how to eat healthy. Like, you've got to have a time before the meals are happening to come up with what you're going to do. Jot down a grocery list. It can be really simple fare, but you have to, first buy the groceries and then just, having a little plan jotted out for the week of what you're going to have. Because 5 o'clock, a lot of times people are waiting until then. And then it's like everything's hectic. And that's the worst time to try and figure out what you're going to eat. And that's when you're going to make poor decisions. You're hungry, you're short on time. So, really giving yourself that forethought to come up with healthy meals in advance is like the first step for sure.
Yes, that is so true. Because trying to figure it out in the moment is like you just start trying to throw stuff together and then you're frustrated and the kids are hungry. It's just like, oh my goodness. And I know meal prep looks different for everyone. So what does meal prep look like for you?
Yeah, it has evolved over the years. The meal plans that we've created are all designed to where, you have some tasks to do up front, kind of the meal prep. But they're also written out to where if you don't have time to do the meal prep, you can do it at night in the moment. Where I've landed right now is a lot of times on the weekends. So like Sunday afternoon when I'm making lunch and I'm looking at the meal plan and doing some quick prep, like maybe chopping some of the vegetables. And maybe I don't get through a full kind of like meal prep session, but then Monday I kind of look again and like as I'm making dinner, I like make a marinade or a salad dressing for later that week. So I'm kind of doing a few small tasks while I'm making a meal already versus having this. I think a lot of times people think, oh, I need this like full afternoon to just like meal prep for the whole week. And really, it can just be doing a few simple tasks while you're already preparing a meal just to set yourself up. Or, when you're making dinner, doubling up the amount that you're making so you can have some for lunch or dinner the next day.
Yeah, I definitely love that because I know for me earlier in my 20s, like when people talk about meal prep, I used to think about, oh, you're making meals for the whole week. You're going to eat the same thing all week. But now, as I evolved and
Yep.
like as a mom and like running the household and things, it's like, no, you don't have to cook all the meals, cook your staple items. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes more sense than trying to eat the same thing all week. Cause then I'm like, by the end of the week, I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's like making a sauce, like making a chimichurri, having it on salmon on Monday, and then Wednesday pulling it back out, but mixing it with like a steak salad or something.
Exactly, like just using the items that you have to recreate. So, what are your go-to pantry staples for putting together quick meals?
Yeah, I mean, gosh. So, it's kind of like thinking through the basics of like what do you need to create a meal. So it's like, okay, I've got like a carb, which for me, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, those sort of things. And then always having some healthy proteins in the freezer or, fridge. And then always having vegetables. So it's kind of like those three things, and then bringing it together with like a sauce or a dressing to add a lot of flavor. Or, I like to rely on, fresh herbs and things like that to make it.
You sound, you sound like me. I'm like, yeah, because that's how I go through it. I'm like, okay, and then what is everybody eating for this week?
Yes.
Yes. And so, what are some nutrient dense meals that help with postpartum healing and energy levels?
Yeah. So with postpartum specifically, I think it's a tricky time because it's a time when you're short on sleep a lot of times and just time in general. So it can be a time where it's like, okay, let's give myself a break and just like order and take out. But it's also a time where our bodies just need and crave those nutrients, and it's like replenishment. So I'm always thinking like one, bone broth and like soups that have like this like broth that can kind of replenish, and meats. And I know everyone always says lean meats, but I think postpartum, at least for me, it's like a time of craving like kind of those heavier meats and maybe even some fattier meats, like a roast or something. And just really stocking up and replenishing with plenty of protein and vegetables and nutrients. Your body's craving it. And with the meat specifically, there's the iron that's happening. And so a lot of times there's cravings that are happening, and that's for a reason, because your body's, knowing that it needs to replenish the nutrients.
Yes. And do you have any suggestions for moms who are maybe like plant based or vegetarian as well?
Yeah, I mean, just again, like finding some protein sources, so beans and lentils, and those have some iron in them. Or I don't know, just kind of like looking for that. And you can still find some broths that, do like a vegetable broth, or kind of depends on the level of, plant-based, what they're doing in terms of, vegetable broth versus a bone broth.
Yes, because you can always find different ways to make your meals work, long as you have the essential components of it. What advice would you give to a mom who feels like overwhelmed in the kitchen and does not know where to start?
Well, yeah, kind of going back, one, having the plan.
Mhm.
Two, so there's a few things, but one, and when you're thinking postpartum specifically, or a time just where you're overwhelmed, maybe it's like your kid's going through something, or something's hit, there's a family member that's in the hospital, whatever it is, but you're going through something. I always say try and see, versus just like, okay, let's get takeout. See if there's someone that can help, right? Is there a neighbor that's offering to bring a meal? Do you have a babysitter? So like with the prep dish meal plans, they're kind of designed to where someone can buy the groceries and then another person can do this piece. So maybe there's, if you have a spouse, like have your spouse help out. Or, if you have a teenager, or again, like going back to that babysitter, they don't have to just be holding the baby. If you've got a new baby, maybe the babysitter or nanny can chop some vegetables while you're spending time with the baby. I think sometimes people automatically think someone's here, they need to be with the baby. But if you have company, put them to work, So I think asking for help and delegating, if you can, is something that isn't like an automatic thought, but I think that would be the first place to think. And then another big tip is, if you're pre-postpartum, like when you're pregnant, is prepping yourself by having some freezer meals. So that's something I always do pre-baby, is like fill my freezer with crock pot freezer meals, is what I call them. It's kind of like these, you just throw them in the crock pot and they're ready to go. And so that way, once baby comes, I've got like my freezer stocked with those healthy meals that are just, I don't have to think about.
Yeah, that's so awesome, because then it's like also too, what's in your meals. Like if you're prepping them, you're able to see what's in your meals versus like if you get a frozen meal from the store. Because I'm learning too, like how with time, like when you're eating like more nutritional meals and things like that,
Mhm.
when you try to go to the store and get like, oh, I'm gonna get a frozen meal. It does not taste the same anymore. And you're like, I don't want this. So like I like how you were talking about how you can prep stuff ahead of time and then put it in your freezer yourself so that you can have a meal on hand that's not, frozen from the store.
And you'll feel better too, right? And you really want to be, again, like providing yourself with these nutrients to where you're going to feel better. So it's important to have that and think through that. So.
Yeah. And I love that you said start with the plan first, because I know when you talk about with dish prep, I meant prep dish, excuse me. I'm all like dish prep, prep dish. with the plan. So I know you guys have a grocery list, right? You start with the grocery list and then you're able to just run to the store, get what you need, and then you're able to prepare the meal. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that will be so helpful for so many moms.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of take that piece out of it. So I always say, whether it's prep dish helping or you doing it on your own, like have the plan. So with prep dish, we create that plan for you, right? Like here's the grocery list, just buy these things. We're actually integrating, I think over this weekend, probably by the time this launches, we're integrating with Instacart. So it's like push the button, groceries will be there, they'll arrive at your door. And then, I even have a whole list of like, okay, if you have time to meal prep, here's a few things to do to set yourself up for the week. If not, that's fine. Just like, here's the meals. And that way, when you get to that 5 o'clock, like I was talking about, you're not going to have to think about it. It's like, here's what you're going to have. Everything's in the fridge. Maybe it's already even chopped and ready to go. So you're just really setting yourself up for success and making that dinner time. So for me at my house, dinner time is like the most important time of the day, really, where my family, we sit down, we connect. And it's so important for not only our like physical health and, feeding our bodies, but for our emotional connection and spending time together. I mean, I've got young kids, so sometimes it's peaceful, it's not always the best time of the day, but it really is important for a connective point as a family to sit down and enjoy a meal together.
Most definitely. And it takes the decision fatigue out. And also, you can
Mhm.
prep with your kids. I know for me, my toddlers love to help in
Yes,
the kitchen. Sometimes it takes a
yes,
little longer, but
it
I've learned
does.
the trick is when you do prep with them, they're most likely to eat their dinner because they made it.
Yes, they're involved, they're invested. And I will say, like, it pays off sooner than you think. Like, even my 6-year old, sometimes my 4-year old, I can give him a task and he will be over there. Like, he will peel potatoes and, yeah, it takes him longer, but I can do all these things. And he's already saving me some time. And I can just already see a future of like them really being helpful in the kitchen. So that's cool. And, personally, it's exciting to know, oh, I can have some helpers and I don't have to do this all the time.
Yeah, and then like they like to take initiative. Like something funny too is like my oldest, he's almost 4. So he's in his smoothie, like he loves smoothies for breakfast.
Mhm.
Now he'll wake up like I'm ready to go make my smoothie. And one day I'm like, well, let me work out first, then make your smoothie. So well, I'll just go make it myself. And I'm like, dude, like you're not there yet. You still need support. So it just makes them
Yeah.
excited as well to be a part of like what they're gonna eat. Cause it also gives them an option of like, okay, what do you want to eat? They're more likely to know because they see the foods. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
look at you. Like he'll tell me, I'm like, what do you want to eat? Oh, this is what I want. Like my youngest likes avocado. So he's avocado toast. And I'm just like, okay, I see you.
No, it really does. It gives them a self-confidence and it creates adventurous eaters, which, is a dietitian and a chef. Like that's what I want to see is my kids like going and exploring and enjoying food.
Yes. And then do you have any tips like for dish? I don't know why I keep saying it
I know
backwards.
now you're going to go to it every time.
Do you have any advice for moms who feel like they have to cook separate meals based on different like, some families have like where some people are plant-based, some people are meat eaters, some are vegetarian. So do you have any
Yeah.
tips for moms who have to make separate meals?
Try and find common points. So maybe it's like, you have the same salad or like a grain bowl. Like bowls are really good to do, especially if you have picky eaters or something, because everyone can pick and choose what they're adding to it, like some sort of Mexican bowl. And it's like you've got rice and you've got beans, but maybe you also have some meat and the avocado and the cheese. And, if someone's dairy free, they just leave the cheese off. And so kind of like a create your own type thing, but figure out ways where you can have some of the same foods and maybe that's just kind of, adding in the things that are different. And when kids have things like gluten-free or dairy-free, I do encourage to try and just maybe everyone, especially in the beginning, eat that way to make it easier on them. And also when there are restrictions, focusing on what you can eat. So with Prep Dish, all of our meal plans are gluten-free, but you wouldn't know it, right? Because if you're just focusing on like, but there's still all these other delicious foods you can eat. And I think sometimes people in the beginning are like, oh, I can't have this thing. So they're just hyper focused on what they can't have, but there's so much that you can have, whether you're, again, eating dairy-free or plant-based or whatever. I'm always like, if you look at the list of vegetables, there's so many delicious veggies out there.
Yes, it's so true. And then you just get to try new things. And like,
Uh-huh.
I love grocery shopping personally. I just love going through the store looking at produce. And I've also been like gardening. So it's just so different. Like when you start like just enjoying the process, like it brings me so much joy. Like I'm over here grinning.
I love it.
And then do you have any great tips for snacks, like on the go meals? As prep dish help support with that too?
Yeah, so we don't do as many as the snacks. Some of that we do like kind of bonus handouts, and we're always trying to support people. Like, last year we had a big focus on breakfast because people are struggling with breakfast. And, so we'll have different bonus things that are on, snacks. And even sometimes if we have you buy celery, we always try and make sure that any ingredient that's purchased, you use the entire thing. Like, I don't want you left with half an onion just sitting in your fridge. Like I'm really big on not just efficiency of time, but efficiency and with ingredients. So for example, if you're cutting a few stalks of celery to use in your soup and there's some left over, we'll go ahead and just chop that and set that aside for a snack. And I think just having, again, intentionally thinking through, going back to that plan of like, okay, what are some grab and go snacks that I can have? Postpartum, I know energy bites are really good, like with the nut butters and seeds and dried fruits, because those are really kind of some nutrients and calories. And so that can be really helpful. I did a lot of energy bites postpartum. And so those are always good to have stocked up, but kind of just knowing what you're going to want and having it on hand. And again, if you can chop it in advance, like celery doesn't take that long to chop. But when you're doing it, the day before, you're much more likely to reach for it. But if you just see, open your fridge and it's like, oh, well, there's some carrots and celery, but they're not chopped. In the moment, you may not be like, oh, let me set aside some time and chop them. So it's simple things like that.
That is so true, especially like you're more likely to eat it. So I know like what I do exactly like how you're talking about. Like, so I have like if I'm cutting like zucchini or squash or anything, I cut them all up for the whole week. So all I got to do is grab it and put it in the pan. And I'm just like, oh, that's so much easier versus like just looking at it and like, oh, my zucchini went bad.
I know. Yeah. Anytime my knife and cutting board are out, I'm like, okay, what else is in the fridge? What else should I chop? Also, it's like less time, pulling out it's like, batching. You don't want to pull out your knife and cutting board every meal. So just do it once and then be done for a few meals.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cause sometimes it's like, I'd rather just tough it out in the long run. Sometimes you can even put like a show on or like listen to a book or play music while you do it. Cause it's like,
yes,
well, at least I'll be happy for the rest of the week where I don't have to just chop everything up. I'm just cooking.
exactly.
Okay, so if someone is totally new to meal prep and they're like, okay, I have the plan. How do I stay consistent with the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think and I talk a lot about this. I actually have a podcast and I talk a lot about habit formation and how to do it and how to stick with it. There's a few things. One, I think when you're first doing it, really taking the time to appreciate that you've done it, right? Because that first week when you meal prep and then all of a sudden you're set up and meals are nice, you're like, this is awesome, but really like thinking through, wow, this is great. I'm so proud of myself. So that way, when you go to do it again, you're like, you kind of remember that feeling and how good it feels. So that's one thing. Another thing is scheduling, just kind of thinking through, what am I going to actually do this? How do I prioritize this? Do I need to, get together with my partner and be like, okay, here's some time. Can you help with the kids? Or do I need to get a sitter? Do I need to like, how can you make it work with your schedule? Don't just think you're magically going to have an hour appear. You like really think through what timing is going to work for you. Because a lot of times once you have that, then it's like, oh, well, this time is for this. So I'm going to do it.
Yes, that is so true, which is why I believe in like family meetings. Because me and my husband, we sit down and do it together. We're like, okay, what are we eating this week? And how are we going to prep this? I'm like,
get through.
Yep. Because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do all of this on my own.
Yep.
All right. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you one random question. One kitchen tool you can't live without.
Yeah. So I am going to say a chef's knife. If you are going to be preparing foods from scratch, a nice chef's knife. And if you're not comfortable with a chef's knife, I would encourage you to either, find a knife class or watch some videos on YouTube. It's really going to speed up and, kind of empower you to do a lot more in the kitchen. So just getting those basic knife skills down goes a really long way.
Yes, it does.
Nice high quality knife, like the paring knives. I used to do cooking classes. Don't know a little paring knife, like get a big real chef's knife.
Yes, I think I need to put that on my list because I'm like, I don't even think I have a chef's knife. I just use like the regular. But that is something to look forward to now because I'm just grinning because I just appreciate having you on. And this is such an amazing conversation. All right. So how can the mamas get in touch with you?
Well, I have a 2-week free trial set up at prepdish.com/postpartum. So if they want to try Prep Dish, it's 14 days. You can try out all the different meal plans, see how they work. So that's a good way if you're ready to just go in. The website's Prep Dish. On Instagram, we're at Prep Dish. And then I do have a podcast, Meal Prep Monday, where I talk about meal prep, but I also talk about motherhood and entrepreneurship and all sorts of topics. So
Yes. So, when you prep your food, you can listen to the podcast as well.
I do a lot of either Audible or podcast when I'm prepping for sure. It helps make it more fun.
Yes, I love that. That's so fun. Well, I appreciate having you on, Allison. This has been so amazing. Like, I'm just grateful for it. So, thank you for sharing your wisdom, making meal prep feel so much more doable for moms. Moms, share this with a mom friend, share it with your cousins, whoever. Share it so that they can get to meal prepping and fueling their body. Until next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Navigating Postpartum Wellness podcast. If you enjoyed it, I'd love for you to leave a review and share this podcast with a mom friend who needs encouragement. Be sure to join my email list at navigatingpostpartumwellness.com for more tips, updates, and resources to help you on your journey. I'll see you in the next episode.